Good morning, everyone. Today I'll be speaking on a child sexual abuse imagery arrest that occurred in October. Again, information contained in our media releases may relate to issues of violence or trauma, which could be distressing for some individuals. Be mindful of your well-being and consider whether or not engaging with this content is appropriate for you. In July 2024, the Winnipeg Police Service's Internet Child Exploitation Unit, ICE, was alerted to child sexual abuse imagery on a suspect's mobile device. A search of the device revealed child sexual abuse images, and a warrant for arrest was issued for the suspect. Further searches of the suspect's mobile device revealed video recordings made in April 2023 and May 2024 of children and adults in various stages of undress in the family change room of a public pool in the Maples neighborhood of Winnipeg. On October 2nd, 2024, the suspect was arrested on the strength of the warrant for arrest. Information came to light during the investigation, which led investigators to believe that the suspect had previously inappropriately engaged with a student while he was teaching at a high school in a North End neighborhood. Matthew James Mousseau, a 37-year-old male of Winnipeg, was arrested for the following offenses: possession of child pornography, accessing child pornography, voyeurism, sexual assault, and sexual exploitation. Investigators determined that Mousseau had been employed as a teacher in several schools in Winnipeg up until May of 2024, but is no longer a teacher in Winnipeg. Mousseau was released on a release order as mandated by the Criminal Code. The ICE unit continues with this investigation. Anyone with information wishing to speak to investigators can call 204-986-6172. We remind you, the Winnipeg Police Service reminds everyone to be aware of their surroundings, especially when using a change room or washroom facility in a public setting. The public are encouraged to report any suspicious items or activity in and around these settings. The Winnipeg Police Service is committed to protecting youth and those at risk of sexual exploitation. The public is encouraged to report any child sexual abuse imagery or child pornography. Call the non-emergency line at 986-6222, Crime Stoppers, or anonymously online with Crime Stoppers as well. I'll take any questions that you may have.
Is it known how many people were recorded by this suspect?
It's unknown at this time. We know it's multiple multiple individuals that were recorded, and that deals basically to the voyeurism charge that we see here.
Where did the tip to the ICE unit come from? How did the police find out?
That's a little bit more complicated, and can't get into the details of that. That involves a separate investigation where this phone was obtained, where police made contact with this individual, and it's at that point that more information was gained on the involvement in other factors and other instances that we speak of today.
Do police believe or suspect that there may be additional victims? Like not so much for the recording, obviously, but given this alleged offending, the sexual assault, the sexual exploitation?
Yeah, so that's a very important question aspect that we want to bring up. We obviously have a survivor here that we have been in contact with that has spearheaded this investigation with this individual. And whenever we hear of a survivor, one survivor in this case, we know that there is a potential of more survivors being involved or having contact with this individual. We do realize this is a traumatic event for this person to even very courageous for this person to come forward and talk to investigators. And we do certainly thank the individual, the survivor, for bringing this up to us. But again, there may be other survivors out there, so we implore them to contact the Winnipeg Police Service so that we may investigate that as well.
So how did, because police received the tip about the image in July, and then on October 2nd it was determined that they had an inappropriate relationship with the student. So was it during this investigation that police started interviewing people? And
Correct. Correct. Yes.
So the investigation started in July, and then by interviews and things by October is when the other piece
Correct. So the initial investigation, which we're not speaking about today, that brought on forward more evidence, which led to the continuation of where we have these arrests and these charges stemming from.
It said that this person worked in multiple schools, employed as a teacher. Was he a substitute? Was he working as a support teacher or cultural support worker?
I'm not going to specify exactly what that entailed, but this is obviously a position of power where it had access to youth. And again, this is a teacher that was employed in as far as this incident here is a North End school. However, we are not completely sure how many years he was employed as a teacher, but his employment would have involved several different schools within Winnipeg. So that we do know.
You say he was employed up until May 2024. Was he let go?
That I couldn't answer that for you, but based on our investigation and based on the information that we have received from our investigators, he was no longer employed by any school division at the time this investigation began.
He wasn't employed by...
He's no longer employed at this time, or at the time of his arrest, he was no longer employed by any school division in Winnipeg.
Outside of Winnipeg?
I couldn't answer that with all certainty, but he's no longer a Winnipeg teacher involved.
But maybe, I'm sure that there will be parents who are watching this or reading about it later, and they may wonder which schools did he work at? So can you identify the schools?
Not at this time. This is very, there's a lot involved in this investigation. Right now, we're only specifying that it is a North End community school. And again, the scope of where he may have taught, it could be anywhere in the city of Winnipeg. But of course, we have released his name as Matthew James Mousseau, 37 years. So his name would have, to those who have been taught by him or had contact with him, they would know or recognize that name.
In terms of the charges here, does the charge of sexual assault and sexual exploitation stem from his involvement with the student and the voyeurism and child pornography from the videos on the phone?
Correct. So the voyeurism charge and the possession of child pornography and accessing child pornography deals specifically with the electronic evidence that was gained and obtained by investigators. You've got the sexual assault and sexual exploitation that deals directly with the inappropriate engagement with that student that was under his care.
Are you able to elaborate in terms of what that involvement with the student was?
That I cannot. I can tell you it's inappropriate in nature, and certainly would bring forth these charges.
Can you say was it a male student or female student?
Not at this point, no.
Prior to July, was this suspect known to police, and if so, for what kind of?
And I know we get posed that question a lot, whether or not the person had been involved in prior police involvement. In this particular case, there's not a lot of prior police involvement. And again, even if for any case, this is in general terms, we wouldn't speak to any past charges, but nothing that would alert us to different charges, similar charges with this particular individual.
So him no longer being employed as a teacher as of May, does that relate to any kind of alleged offending or the alleged inappropriate relationship with the student?
That I can't answer for you because that has to do with the school division for which he would have been employed with.
So he was released on a release order. What kind of conditions was he released?
Anybody who's involved with children in any acts of a sexual nature against children, if they are released by the courts to the community, have a plethora of conditions that they need to abide for, which may include not being in the presence of children or parks or as such. So there are a lot of conditions that he would need to abide by from this release order, any of which he would not abide by, he would be subject to arrest.
something like this, or maybe even before something like this occurs, do police work at all with the city when it comes to like safety or security for change rooms at public pools?
Well, it's a collective effort. We've got many different parts of the city here that are involved here. And the best thing that we can do as a service is not only provide that information to media and the public as a safeguard, but to work with those parts of the city so that we can further educate the public so that they can best protect themselves.
In regards to those video recordings, how do you believe he got those?
I won't get into that part of the investigation, but there is enough evidence to warrant these charges being brought forward.
Was it believed he took the videos himself?
That would be why those charges would be against him, yes.
Was he going
Correct.
into the change rooms alone and doing this, or was he with children when he was going in?
I can't confirm that for you. We at this point, we believe that this is himself doing it. There's no others implicated.
It wasn't a situation where he was at the public pool because it was a school field trip, for example?
Correct. Correct.
In a case like this, are you able to identify who is on those videos, and then do police contact them to let them know?
I'm going to speak in very general terms. That's a great question, and in many cases, it's not evident maybe who is a victim here. But if in any way those people can be identified, there will be contacts made by the Winnipeg Police Service, Victim Services, to be able to link them to proper supports, because all these things are very traumatic in nature, and they are an assault on people's privacy.
How difficult would that be to do, to try to identify somebody on video?
It's extremely difficult. It depends on the information that's gained from the electronic evidence that investigators are able to retrieve. Unless you have names or facial recognition or you'll be able to recognize or put a positive identity to a picture, that's the only time that can be done. Or somebody would be able to place themselves there at that time. That's the other way.
Police found the child sexual abuse imagery on the phone in July. The arrest was made in October. Can you speak to why it took several months for an arrest?
Absolutely. I mean, and again, this is not in direct relation to this investigation. This is, again, putting it in very general terms. But whenever we have any information or any information that's gained from a search warrant, first of all, there needs to be an application to a search. You have to have enough evidence to apply for a search warrant, be granted a search warrant. In this case, it's an electronic device. So there are some protocols to go through this device and to get access to that information from the device, retrieve that. And sometimes it can be hundreds and hundreds, which in this case was a lot of information that was gained from this particular electronic device. It takes a lot of time to weed through all that, again, to possibly identify some possible victims, but not only that, to see what kind of criminal activity was perpetrated by the individual so that we can bring the proper charges to be dealt with in court.
How many video recordings are we talking about?
We're speaking hundreds here. Hundreds.
How many visits do we know? How many visits?
That I can't specify on the visits. Forms part of the investigation.
And when you say hundreds of videos, all of those relating to?
Not hundreds of videos. It could be hundreds of either pictures or videos. So there could be, I don't want to just pigeonhole it to videos, but it could be pictures and videos.
But all those related to the change rooms, or was there more?
There's more. So again, stemming from an earlier investigation, and then this mushroom into the separate investigations where we have these arrests coming from. So there's a lot of things that have been warranted to bring these charges to this individual in regards to the information that was gained so far. That's not to say that there's information on those devices that could stem from more charges against more victims. So again, that's why it's important for us to be able to bring this out to the public in case there are any more survivors. They can bring those and report that to police, and we can make that link.
So just so I'm understanding correctly, so just in May 2020, 2024 and April 2023. So just from those two incidents in the public pool, there's hundreds of either pictures or videos.
No, just to clarify, that's a great question, but just to clarify, the end search warrants for the electronic device divulged hundreds of pictures. So they can be from various, they can be from various areas, yeah.
Specifically then for the change room videos, can you say how many
No.
there were?
I cannot.
From July,
Mhm.
I guess what was the duration or the timeline? So search warrant is obtained. How much time, I guess, expired before investigators were able, like, I don't know if the phone was locked or anything like that, but how much time expired or before they were able to get into the phone and then get all of the data off of it and then go through it? How, you know?
I know it's very complicated, it's a little bit hard to follow. That initial investigation where our police officers came into contact with Matthew Mousseau, there was the element of evidence gained from the electronic device, which spurned more the application for further search warrants for that device, if that makes sense. So the initial contact with the evidence that we've had from the investigators' point of view in regards to the electronic device spurned additional search warrant for that device, and that's why you have that time factor.
And maybe just to clarify, I'll ask again, what was the initial contact?
I can't get into that part of it. That's where it gets a little bit more tricky. But as long as you understand that there was an initial investigation that led to further investigation where all this was gained.
So could we anticipate, I guess, that at some point in the future from that initial contact that there could be another press release or another press conference in the future announcing charges against Mousseau?
Not at this point, but I can tell you that the other investigation still remains open. It's not closed by any means, so that is always possible in the future. At this time, this is what we have, and these are the charges, and we only have the one survivor that we're dealing with. Again, that does not mean that there may be other survivors that are out there that we may need to talk to. Any more questions?
Not about this, but some other reporters might have questions about it. And I don't know if you can address it now or if you want to do it afterward. Just the police presence on Flora this morning.
Oh, you know what? If you send me an email on that, I won't speak to it because I'd like to concentrate on these for the press for the news conference. But if you want to send me an email, I'll be more than happy to answer that for you.
Right at the end here,
Mhm.
it says, Winnipeg Police Service reminds everyone to be aware of their surroundings. I mean, can you speak to that a little more? Like, could this have been avoided?
Well, we don't want to victimize people that have already been victimized, and that's not the point of what we're trying to say here. And be aware, again, not speaking about this specifically, but there have been in the age of electronics where people have hidden things in public settings where they're able to record people doing things in private. And they're not always able to be seen by the people that are victimized. So we're not saying that go and look for cameras and things where you're about, but just be aware that those things are possible. We want to educate the public here to be able to not only recognize or if they feel something is wrong, maybe tell someone, report it so that we can investigate it. We can't investigate these things unless they're reported. So it's very important for us to know if people feel that they've been victimized or if, they get a little sense that there's something's not right. Tell someone, tell the security of the establishment where you're at. And of course, call police, and we'll do our best to investigate those. Everything is taken very seriously, and you can tell from this investigation, it started with a smaller investigation, and it turned into a large investigation where we have some serious offense here committed against a youth. So this is important for us to put out there and for people to get to be aware of those things that are happening in our communities. Anything else? No? Thank you very much.